If all of you are okay, let's get started. Is that all right, Deborah? Okay with you?
Indeed
Okay,
it is.
great. So welcome everybody. My name is Tom Canego. I'm a member of the advisory board, which is sponsoring this panel. And I'd like to welcome all of you to the panel discussion and welcome our panel members as well. I think you're going to enjoy this program. You're going to get some great insight from our panel on careers in healthcare administration, but there's always a beginning. Before we do that, I'd like to turn this over to our department chair, who has a rather special announcement to begin our program. So Dr. Urliana.
Thank you, Tom. So maybe Maria, can you share the slide? But first, I'm echoing Dr. Canego here. I want to welcome all of you to this speaker series that advisory board sponsoring. I'm very proud of what we're doing so far. I think pandemic did not stop us. We keep hosting and providing, opportunity for our students to get support and help, and also again another network opportunity here for all of us. So that's why I'm very proud of our team here. So thank you, because I may not have a chance to say thank you out loud here, but I want to say thank you to all of you who's preparing this event. But my task for this evening is, can you go to the next one, Maria? I would like to share with you great news. The next slide, please. Yeah. Again, despite pandemic, we're doing great. So one of our graduate students from accelerated program won a pretty big award from our accrediting body. CAMI is a graduate program accreditation agency. They awarded one of our graduate student, Yasmin, a big award, which is Judy Bar Topinka Scholarship. So this is a big honor because this one is a Blue Ribbon Award that the judge is kind of like governor, is high-ranking official, but basically is the one who judging this winner. So yes, and again, as you can see, we doing well. We're doing well. Our student doing well. And another scholarship actually received by our student is not in the slide because I don't have the official press release for that. Is received by our undergraduate student, T. Nguyen. I don't know whether she's part of this meeting today, but she's also receiving a nice international scholarship. And yes, that's kind of like our student accomplishment within the pandemic period. So that's kind of like my announcement for today. And again, there's more to come for you guys to apply. There's more scholarship announcement that is going to come to you. So please do apply. And hopefully many of you will receive another award. Okay, so I think we have packed agenda. So Tom, take over from there.
You got it. So thank you for that. Congratulations, Yasmin and T. I'm happy and proud of both of you. So that's awesome news. So Maria, if you can go to the next slide. So before we go to the panel, I just want to make a quick little pitch for College Bowl. So tonight's panel discussion is about a lot of topics, about careers, what you can do to enhance your resume, things you can do to make yourself more presentable to a prospective employer, et cetera, et cetera. Well, one thing I would like all of you to consider, whether you're an undergraduate or a graduate student, is to participate in College Bowl, and we're accepting individuals right now for our two teams that we're going to put together. So there's an undergraduate team that compete in a Jeopardy style type competition. You are a team of individuals that answers questions about healthcare. And yes, we have some materials to help you prepare for it. If you're a graduate student, we put together a team and you do a case study analysis. You come up with a solution to the case study and you present it. And we can have two graduate teams. We already have one, and we're hoping that we can get a few more individuals to participate in the next one. So Maria, go to the next slide. This is a team from last year. In case you recognize any of them, reach out to them and ask them what their experience was like. But I think they will all tell you it was fun, it was competitive, it was an opportunity to get together and solve a business problem in an environment in which you meet lots of people, you meet advisory board members, you meet fellow students, you meet individuals from other schools, and it's great resume material. So I hope all of you are interested. The next slide, Maria, will have how you go about this. We need to hear from you relatively soon. We do have a hard deadline sometime in March, but I think we would prefer to hear from all of you that are interested. Again, whether you're a grad student or an undergrad student, within the next few days. Reach out to Dr. Earliana or myself if you have any questions. We could tell you a little bit more about it. So thank you with that. So with that, I'd like to introduce our moderator. We're very fortunate to have her to lead us through tonight's presentation. She's been a national operations officer for the Department of Veterans Affairs for a number of years. She's a graduate of Long Beach, where she received her MHA in Healthcare Administration. She's also a member of our department's faculty. So with that, I'd like to turn things over to our moderator, Deborah Ludke.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Canego, and good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It is absolutely my pleasure to warmly welcome each and every one of you to the CSULB Department of Healthcare Administration Speaker Series Career Opportunities Panel. As Dr. Canego mentioned, my name is Deborah Ludke, and I'm a two-time graduate of CSULB, and I had the privilege of participating I'm an alum of the Healthcare Administration Graduate Program at CSULB and former president of the CSULB Healthcare Administration Alumni Network. And in addition to where I work and what I do for my two parts of my career, both at VA and CSULB, I think what's really important to share is that I'm really passionate about helping students smoothly transition from college into the professional workplace and setting them up to thrive. So setting all of you up to thrive. And that's what tonight's panel is all about. And I'm so grateful for the privilege of serving as your moderator for tonight's event. So tonight's Healthcare Administration Career Opportunities panel will allow us all to hear from three very respected and local healthcare leaders who will share their best tips for our soon-to-be graduating students and alumni to prepare for, find, and nail down career opportunities in our field. So these three panelists, I've had the privilege of some of them I've known, and others I've had the privilege of getting to know over the last few weeks as we've prepared, and they have so many critical career information tidbits to share with you, and we're so delighted that they can be here and that you can be here to further your healthcare administration career journey. So a few housekeeping items to help us all communicate effectively tonight via Zoom. We ask first that all attendees sign in via Zoom using your full name, which in your display, which matches your name on the CSULB student roster. So if you haven't adjusted that, this is a great time to do that. Also, we encourage you to enter personal pronouns if you wish on your Zoom naming, and use the right upper hand button on Zoom to view tonight's panel in speaker view for enhanced viewing. After our panelists share this evening, we'll definitely reserve time for open discussion and a question and answer session. And at that time, we'll invite you and encourage you to type your questions right into the chat box. And Dr. Canego is going to be helping us out in reading those questions out loud to gain insight from our panelists. If you have questions about the particular topics that are being discussed while our panelists are presenting tonight and on that particular topic, please feel free to type your questions into the chat box, and Dr. Canego can absolutely feed those questions which are on topic to our panelists to try to see if we can incorporate those questions right then and there during the presentations. So with that, at this time, it is my very true pleasure to introduce Dr. Grace Reynolds Fisher, Associate Dean for Faculty Affairs and Research for the College of Health and Human Services at CSULB and a former professor in my graduate program, no less. Dr. Reynolds Fisher?
Oh, thanks, Deborah. Yes, welcome everyone. I'm Grace Reynolds Fisher, Associate Dean in the College of Health and Human Services. I have faculty affairs and research in my portfolio. It's great to see so many familiar faces. Congratulations, Dr. Early, on the success of your students. That is wonderful. Welcome everyone. And I also just wanted to recognize, well, several of the people on this call are former students of mine, including one of the guest speakers, Ardell. So welcome, Ardell, and glad to see everyone. So just welcome.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Reynolds Fisher. It's so lovely to have you here. Thank you for making the time to join us tonight. At this time, it is my true pleasure to warmly welcome and introduce our three amazing panelists. First, we have Natasha Milatovich, who joins us this evening from Adventist Health. Natasha is an experienced healthcare executive. She oversees the human resources operations for Adventist Health, which with over 37,000 employees is one of the largest health systems on the West Coast. Welcome, Natasha.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
We're so excited to have you here. Thank you so much. Next, we have Elizabeth Dubois, who joins us this evening from Cope Health Solutions. Elizabeth is a nurse practitioner by training and is the principal and chief people officer at Cope Health Solutions, which is a company that provides strategy development assistance to healthcare organizations throughout the United States. She is an expert in workforce development and she oversees the company's Health Scholars program. Welcome.
Hi,
Elizabeth.
everyone. Thanks for having me here.
Welcome, Elizabeth. We're delighted to have you here. And finally, I'm so excited that Ardell Avellino joins us this evening from St. Mary Medical Center, which is a part of Dignity Health. Ardell is a member of the executive team at St. Mary Medical Center, serving as senior director. Ardell is a critical care registered nurse by background and is a staunch and passionate mentor and preceptor for our healthcare administration and nursing students here at CSULB. He is also a proud alum of our HCA graduate program and a former president of the CSULB Healthcare Administration Alumni Network. Ardell, welcome. We're so delighted to have you here tonight.
Thank you, Deb, and hello, Dr. Reynolds, and greetings, everyone.
All right. To help us kickstart our panel discussion tonight, I'd like to introduce our first panelist, Natasha Milatovich from Adventist Health. And Natasha, what I was kind of hoping is I could start with a question and let you take it from there. And we can, as I mentioned earlier, if those who are participating as invitees to this event tonight, and we definitely encourage you, if you have questions on the topic, to put your questions in the chat box. And as I was mentioning, Dr. Canego will be happy to help relay those questions to our panelists. So Natasha, to help us kickstart our event tonight, could you share a little bit with us about how you got into healthcare? And with that, could you tell us a little bit briefly about what that journey has been for you?
Sure. Well, we thank you for the invitation. Educated in heart, being that I'm the human resources executive, so appreciate this opportunity. So a long time ago, when I was, in my I think it was about a junior year of college, I did work in a human resources department of my university as a human resources assistant, and someone extended an invitation to a job fair at our school, to which I attended, and met a recruiter that was there recruiting from one of the hospitals. And they told me something I'll never forget, and I repeated a million times throughout my career. You really think that hospitals are made of doctors and nurses, and they're not. They are 24/7 cities that never sleep. And give me a job and I will find it. And so I thought, well, surely I can give you a job that's not in healthcare. So I said something like, well, if I'm an actor and an actress, right? You don't use me in a hospital. And then they described different program behavioral health as to how they actually use people with a certain background in acting. And I thought that was just, that was absolutely phenomenal, and at that time, very surprising to me. And I also liked what I saw. I liked the recruiter, and so tell me a little bit more about your job, and they did. So they stayed with me. And then an opportunity presented in a hospital for a recruiter as I was graduating with my bachelor's degree. So I proceeded to apply and already had this little bit of a HR assistant experience at the time. Got into the recruiting role, started recruiting for skilled nursing facilities. And, from then on, just working in the human resources department and just building sort of my career one step at a time. Went from there to a larger hospital, larger medical center, became an employment manager, after that a director, vice president, the hospital, the region, and the system, right? In the meantime, education is really important. So I obtained 2 master's degrees and then finishing my doctorate. So as a lifelong learner as well, I've been a mentor to many, and I've been developing people, really good, big passion for developing people. So in human resources, I think that's a really key ingredient, which I think has helped me get in my career where I'm today. So in short, sort of that's how it happened. I'll tell you this too. It didn't hurt that my father was a physician and my mom was a nurse. So I grew up at the dinner table talking about what happened at work today. And so the hospitals were not all that foreign to me, although growing up as a teenager, I thought I will never work in a hospital. And, there you go, right? Years and years later, I've been in healthcare. Quickly, by the way, found out that what we call a cheesy statement, we make a difference, right? You hear that. It's true in healthcare. You really do. And you see it, and you see it timely. And you see how, so I work in human resources. So my job is to take care of those who take care of people on the front lines. And you see that connection, and it's really fulfilling. And I find every day to be extremely interesting. And I am still engaged and still passionate about what I do.
I love that. And I love that you're able to connect really your career journey to your personal story as well. So we talk a lot with students to really tap about the importance of tapping into our stories, what influences what turns us on, where we find our passion, and allowing that passion to lead us to that special something where we're really going to make our best difference out in the world. So I love that you found that connection and were able to share that with us. So thank you for that. Absolutely. Amazing. So might you at this time be able to share something we hear from students all the time is that they are trying to get their heads around. So they're choosing healthcare administration as a major, either as undergrads or grad students. And even for those who've already completed their degrees, there's always questions about what it is that, how to find those jobs. So what are some potential healthcare administration careers and entry-level jobs? So I'm wondering if you might be able to share what are some of those potential healthcare administration careers, and what do entry-level jobs look like?
Absolutely. So first of all, congratulations to all of you on the phone, all of you students for picking this career. Healthcare is about service orientation, and it's about people at the end of the day. And so it's about, again, making that difference for people in any job that you do, whether you're going to help someone be more compliant, someone pay a bill, or or hire someone at the end of the line. So the careers are there, and yes, entry-level jobs are there. And because we're a service-oriented industry, any service-oriented job and the role that you have held throughout your college years, make sure you put that on your resume, because it does count. On the screen here in front of you, I hope you could see this slide. I have put together a little list of jobs that you could take a look at, where we do have, and I'm talking healthcare industry, overall, anywhere from administrative roles when you start in the as executive assistants, let's say, or as assistants. And by the way, I've seen folks in starting assistant roles learn about different departments, right? Further their education and move through the hospitals and healthcare. But anywhere from from assistants to administration, you can have jobs in compliance. We would hire like these analysts or the coordinators. Community integration is another career out there. Hospitals are big on community integration. That's how we live. That's that's what we're all about. We're about the communities that we serve. And so there's a lot of liaison jobs as entry-level careers that you can get into in the community integration. Then anything from data analytics, education, finance, folks. The home health is another one that's interesting. Home health, again, all part of healthcare, but it's an interesting career too to start with. As the models of care change, home health is actually developing, the outpatient care, right, is developing, and they're coordinating jobs that people are starting at their career in healthcare. I did put together, there's jobs in human resources that you can look at, legal, although, you're necessarily you're in healthcare administration and your background isn't, classical legal, but I mean, you can get into the roles in our legal departments that have to deal, let's say, with contracts and different, audit functions, as an example, just like legal and compliance, same kind of jobs there. We have medical staff offices, those manage physicians, and many jobs, entry-level careers there as well. Revenue cycle just is a career in healthcare. In other words, this is how we pay bills. So you go to a hospital, you get a bill. This department sort of helps with that continuum. And there's many roles there that you can look at. Supply chain, right, how we get materials into our facilities. And so it just at every part of that supply chain, there's lots of great entry-level jobs you can get into in healthcare, administration. I'll tell you, supply chain, those are some of those skills that are really transferable to any of the industries out there. So really worth looking into as well. And then the care delivery is really how we deliver care to patients, and some of the more of administrative functions of the care delivery that I listed there. So you'll probably get these slides. I've tried to give you the careers itself and jobs that are associated with them. So when you're searching for these roles, it would be a little easier for you.
That's really terrific. Thank you so much for that. Are there some kind of key words that our students and grads should be looking for when they're searching for those entry-level career healthcare administrative jobs? So should they be looking for the word coordinator or assistant? What might be some of those kind of keywords in addition to some of the opportunities you just shared on this slide that they might be kind of tuned into as they're job hunting?
Absolutely, great question. So assistant, coordinator, associate, specialist. I think those are some of the key, words that I would use out there. You can also pull up jobs by these careers, right? The career names. So if you type in revenue cycle, it will give you all of it, right? And then you can look to some of these key entry-level words that will help you get there. So you could do one or the other. And these, by the way, as you're searching them, right, we can talk about a traditional way of finding your roles, which is, you have someone that works in a hospital, someone that works someplace, right? They can get you the list anywhere from that, right? Applying for jobs to, of course, looking on Indeed. Indeed is a big job board in healthcare. That's online, and of course, LinkedIn. Healthcare is, again, I remember I said people connection, and healthcare is about connecting and networking, and it's really important. So the places like LinkedIn are good to reach out to people and connect. And different other associations. So each of these careers, right, would have an association that you can enter to, and also look for these roles. So there's many ways that you can find any of these jobs.
Yeah, I love that. So the textbook that we use in our 2 undergraduate internship classes and for the graduate level 580 internship class as well on campus for our major is a textbook. And actually I look at it more of just this really great resource for careers in healthcare administration. It's called 101 Careers in Healthcare Management. And it lists these 101 different career paths. So I'm really excited when I saw the slide that you just showed, because that really continues to reinforce so many that in healthcare, there are so many different paths. In fact, I hear students say all the time that one of the great things about our career is that there's so many different ways to go, but that can be overwhelming as well. So I really appreciate you helping students understand how to start looking for those positions.
Absolutely. And remember, I said a long time ago, someone told me hospital is a city that never sleeps 24/7. You can be a plumber, you can be an administrator, you can be any career. I mean, it's wonderful. Another way to go about, obviously, looking for jobs and these roles is to volunteer or get an internship. And I see that I have on the panel one of my colleagues who can speak more about that, but it's a wonderful way to get your foot in. So if you have an opportunity, volunteer opportunities are endless in healthcare. We love help. And when you go in and you start helping and they see what you could do, it's an easier way to get into a job, right? Than if you're an applicant coming in for the first time, definitely. And healthcare is very big, again, on education, internships, and volunteer programs. I would highly recommend it.
That's fantastic. So that sounds like a great opportunity for us to be able to transition to now introduce our second panelist, Elizabeth Dubois from Cope Health Solutions. And again, welcome, Elizabeth. So delighted to have you here.
It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. And I'm hoping that maybe we could pick up on the same topic that that Natasha was just starting to mention about how to really make the most out of internships and volunteer opportunities. So given that you're involved with the recruitment of undergraduate students for COPE internships, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that program and how you go about that recruitment for that program.
Yeah, definitely. So it's funny because as Natasha was talking about just the city and there's a million different jobs, that's kind of exactly where this program stemmed out of. And, there were so many individuals that, have no idea about all the potential roles in healthcare. And this is a way, that we thought, okay, here's where we can actually expose individuals to the million of different opportunities within a hospital or a healthcare system or a clinic, whatever it is, as far as the different roles. So we have a program here called COPE Scholars, and we partner with organizations like Natasha's for Adventist. So we have different partnerships with all of the Adventist hospitals in the Southern California area, and individuals can go onto COPE's website, they can choose one of these hospitals, and they can apply to our program. When you join our program, we'll put you through, the needed training that you would go through any type of, anytime you're going to have a badge for the hospital and go inside the door. So all the regulatory trainings. But then what we do is we put you through rotations throughout the healthcare system. And so you're starting to get exposed to all the different roles. So, traditionally you might go to the med-surg unit and the ICU and the ER and you see all the clinical roles. But we also bring you into the HR, we bring you into the tech, we bring you in to volunteer services, we bring you in to employee health, we bring you into all of these different areas within the health system so that you can see some of the roles within those areas, as well as start building kind of your connections, your networking, getting to know the individuals within that health system. And so the COPE Scholar program, you can just go onto the COPE website and apply. And we bring individuals on every 3 months, quite a few at hospitals throughout Southern California. So there's lots of opportunities there. We also bring on interns within our firm at COPE. And so those are really interns that are interested in more of consulting or tech jobs. And so, for those individuals, we're just looking for the same as the Scholar Program, individuals that are really committed to studying. We're not necessarily looking for individuals that have these huge resumes or a lot of background or experience or, have even worked in the hospital. We're looking for individuals that show they're committed to the setting. And when I say the setting, they're committed to the work they're going to do. They're committed to making this a priority. They're committed to understanding the obligations and making sure that they're accountable for the work they're going to take on. And when we find those individuals, we're excited to bring them on to whether it's the Scholar Program or to an intern actually at COPE. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities to kind of see different roles within those areas.
So Elizabeth, if I can jump in real quick, you've got a couple of your scholars on this call right here. So we have Jihad,
Fantastic.
Jasmine, Anya, I think I'm forgetting somebody else there. But one quick question is the rotation you described, how long, just in general, how long of a process are you talking?
Yeah, so at minimum to complete the program, it's 280 hours. And so most individuals do a 4-hour-a-week commitment. And rotations can be done in as long as 3 months or as short as, a couple weeks, depending on how many hours you can commit per week. You can stay in the program as long as you want. Some people stay in 3, 4, 5. I think the longest we have is someone that's in the program now for about 8 years. But you can also, do the program in as quick as 3 months. While you're in the program, we also try to do different professional development skills. And so resume building, we'll do mock interviews, different things to just kind of continue to prep you for your next job.
That's terrific. And also to clarify, do you, for those who are applying to your program and being selected, is that a mix? Are those predominantly those who are seeing themselves going into administrative careers in the healthcare field, or do you also have those who are interested in becoming clinicians as well?
Yeah, so prior to COVID, the majority of individuals that would apply to the program were individuals that wanted to be a doctor or a nurse. And I think honestly, that's a lot just due to media, and those are the roles you see in healthcare. Interestingly enough, even prior to COVID, when you graduate the program, we do an exit survey, to compare when you entered, what do you want to go into? And we see a huge spike in healthcare administration roles and some of the other roles of like other allied health professionals, maybe physical therapists or speech therapists, PAs, NPs, just a little bit off from that nurse and doctor. And then we see about 13% of individuals that go through our program that say, never mind, healthcare is not for me. Let me find a different route, which we take as a win because we're helping people get to their path without necessarily taking more time. Since COVID or during COVID and, what we're still dealing with, we have a lot more individuals applying to the program that don't necessarily want to be in the clinical role at all, or, be on the direct front lines. And they want more of an admin role or a tech role within healthcare or marketing. There's so many different areas, obviously. And so we're seeing much more of an increase in that. We also are building admin and tech tracks that individuals can just go through for healthcare administration or healthcare tech jobs, and kind of stay away a little bit from the front lines if that's what they're looking for. So we see a mix. It's changed a little bit since COVID, but I think the point is that the rotations that you'll go through, I think, really help you clarify or validate your career path.
So Elizabeth, one quick question from one of our participants. I'm unsure if I want to pursue a clinical care degree. What would be the best way to integrate this clinical experience at an administrative level?
Yeah, so I never thought I wanted to be an admin. I started 20 years ago as a nurse at the bedside. And what happened is, I just constantly would ask questions and, get involved at policy and protocol level. And then it just always ended up moving me more to an administrative area. And so even with a clinical degree, there's so many options to get into administration. If you look at most of your nursing managers, they're all have an RN background. Your medical directors, they have MD backgrounds. So there's plenty of experience, there's plenty of opportunities if you do decide to get a clinical degree to then move into administration or, do it simultaneously. Like I still practice on evenings and weekends, seeing patients, but my full-time job is in the administrative area. I think, when you do have that clinical background, you'll always be sought after in healthcare administration because it's an opportunity to provide both aspects. And, if you're trying to get engagement of the clinicians, it's great to also have that background. So I think there's lots of opportunities if you're looking for both clinical and admin. I don't think you have to necessarily say, this is going to be my one path.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, one of the really neat things about healthcare administration as our field is that there are a lot of different paths. I'm so sorry, someone's knocking at my door. There's so many different paths that we can go down as administrators and as clinicians and even end up at the same place. So we can become CEOs of healthcare organizations and, whether that be the strictly administrative path, or we can do that going down a clinical path. So we see physicians and nurses and others who are taking on those roles as well. So that's terrific. So thank you for sharing that with us. So
Definitely.
could you share about, so something that I'm picking up about one of the great things about the internship opportunity that you offer with COPE, with the COPE Health Solutions program is really having that opportunity to rotate to different areas and really get to know others who are in the healthcare administration field. So might you be able to share about why training and networking and making connections, all of those things go hand in hand?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I don't think, at least in the last 10 years of my career, my jobs, that I've ever, cold turkey gone onto a website and applied. I think it's always been through, a connection I'd made. They contact me, they say, hey, we're looking for someone, or someone else connects me, or I hear about something and I go through someone else. And so, an organization, let's say, there's an opportunity for an associate. There can be a lot of resumes that come in for that associate position. And so you want to think about how you're going to distinguish yourself. And when you go in through the networking or the connections, it's really, giving yourself a leg up as far as getting connected to that job a little bit easier. And so it doesn't have to be, that you know someone, or you, let's say, were able to, maybe your dad has a connection here. It doesn't always have to be that way. It can also be through like the program with COPE or any of your internships or training opportunities where you can start connecting with people so that when you find out about a job opportunity, you can say, hey, I'm applying for this job. Have you heard about it? Do you have any recommendations for me? And then all of a sudden you're putting your resume at the top of the pile. It can be the same with even, individuals reaching out to you to say, hey, we have this job opportunity. We would really love to connect with you. With our program, we actually sit down with the HR team at the hospitals once a month, and they go over with us all of their open positions that would be applicable for our graduates. And then we advertise those positions to our graduates. And when we have individuals that are interested, we pass them right along to the recruiters. And they love to see the scholars because, for them, those are badged and vetted individuals. Those are individuals that already know their culture, they know their mission, they've been in the organization, we can vouch for them. And so it's a much, more of a guaranteed hire that this person is really going to be committed to this job and committed to this setting. And I think in general, that's what all of these programs, when we're talking about internships and training opportunities, is really trying to get you connected with individuals to put your resume at the top of the pile to really get those opportunities before others. Otherwise, I mean, it can be sometimes difficult to distinguish yourself in just a cold turkey kind of, here's my resume, here's my application, and so anything that you can do to really get to know someone or get to know the opportunities kind of outside of the website can be a great thing to kind of get yourself in there. Also, just thinking about in general with networking and connections, what other things can you do if you can't, let's say, go through a full internship? Maybe that's not an opportunity. There's a lot of organizations right here in Southern California. There's one that I belong to that when I first moved to LA, I thought was fantastic. It was, they have these events. And what I noticed is that there's a lot of young individuals there, individuals that are like early in their careers. And it's the Healthcare Executives of Southern California, the ACHE chapter of Southern California. And they have these, I mean, most of them have been virtual, but they're so good at trying to connect people and introduce people. And, you can even do various tasks within their chapter to get more connections. But, even though I had a job, they connected me with so many different individuals in the executive levels and the, kind of mid-management. So I really got to know more hospitals around, more healthcare executives. I mean, it was a great opportunity. And I see tons of individuals that are early in their career coming to these events and doing that same type of thing. I know there's also, it's called WA, and it's a Woman in Healthcare Administration. And they have chapters here in the LA area. It's another organization I joined. And also I noticed the majority of individuals are early in their career. And, we haven't had any in-person events, but there's tons of virtual events we still do. Prior to COVID, we used to, grab coffee, do breakfast together. And it would just be a way to kind of connect and, see if there's other opportunities out there, just get to know each other. Also get to find out about organizations that you may not want to apply to, and find out how it is on the inside. There's so many, those are the two that I joined right away and people had told me about it, but I'm sure there's a million others. And even if you don't have the time to join a full internship or apply for a full internship, those are great things that you can join with hopefully pretty nominal membership fees and just start trying to connect with people.
So Elizabeth, one quick plug. So she mentioned the Healthcare Execs of Southern California. I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, the College Bowl. Well, the Healthcare Execs of Southern California is a sponsor or one of the sponsors of that program.
Right.
So it all ties back together. Victoria, if you are out there and are watching, I don't quite understand your question, but it's really pertinent to what Elizabeth is talking about in terms of the path between clinical and administrative. Can you take yourself off mute and ask your question? Are you there, Victoria?
Yeah.
Okay.
My question is, can you be both on the administrative side and the clinical side? Like, I want to be a PA, but then I also want to go on the administrative side and help lead the hospital, because you can have a bunch of great doctors and nurses, but then if you don't have anyone to like lead the team, then you're not gonna get anywhere. And I want to be on both sides.
So Victoria, you will have a million job opportunities in both areas. And I think Natasha can confirm this for me, but yes, you can definitely do both. Like I said, I started as a nurse. I didn't even want to get into administration, but there was just so many opportunities. And, even before I got my master's, there was nursing admin jobs that they were constantly looking for support and help with. You really have just a million opportunities that are hybrid between the clinical and the administrative. You really will never have a problem trying to find a job. And then even when you get into, even within your actual area, like you said, you want to oversee PAs, there's always opportunities for medical directors or directors of PAs or directors of NPs, or you can even do clinical and teaching. They're always looking for teachers that also have the clinical experience. And so you will have a million job opportunities that have the mixture of clinical and administrative. The things that you can do to kind of give yourself a leg up is, on top of whatever you're going to do as far as your clinical degree and role, making sure that you have outside opportunities or outside connections with, maybe you have a certificate and you went through a certificate training program in administration, or you went on to have some sort of skill set to add to your clinical degree, which you don't have to, but it can always be a little bit helpful to show that you also have that business acumen with the clinical skills. But there are a million job opportunities that are a hybrid of clinical and administrative. And honestly, it's what I love, because I realized that the full-time clinical was burning me out. And so it's really nice for me to kind of have a hybrid job.
Let me just butt in and say the CEO of Cedars-Sinai Medical Center is a pharmacist.
Yeah.
Yep.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, great question and great response and spot on. So pivoting back to the networking component that you were discussing, Elizabeth. So the term networking sometimes can feel a little intimidating, that there's a certain something that happens in networking. And I'm wondering if you might be able to break it down as what is really networking in a nutshell. So what is it all about, and why are we all already good at networking, that we've been set up to do this? We've been doing this our whole lives, but maybe we just didn't call it networking. So what would you call it? How would you describe networking? And especially for those who really maybe consider themselves maybe a little on the quieter side, a little on the shyer side, but know that it's important to do this, what tips might you have to kind of get out there, and what might be some effective things they could do to push themselves out there?
Yeah, definitely. So if I had my choice, I would sit in a corner and not, probably be talking to a lot of people and just my head down and doing my work. I have never considered myself an extrovert. So, the idea of networking to me always was pretty daunting and scary. And, I never wanted to, I had a hard time with the idea of that I'm just going to go put myself in this room and start walking up to people with a business card, or introducing myself and, giving my elevator pitch. I even remember when I was getting my doctorate and you had to practice your elevator pitches, that was for me the scariest thing in the world. I didn't want to have to sell myself. And it's just always been kind of, daunting to me. And so I completely understand where you guys may be coming from. I think it's something I still deal with. But, I more look at networking as talking to people. Maybe take away that word network and you're just talking to people the same way you talk to your friends, the same way, you go into a classroom and you talk to the individuals, or via screen, you talk to the individuals next to you about what other classes they're in, or, have they taken, this professor before. What you're doing right there is networking, and it's the same thing. And so probably take that word network out and stop thinking of it as how you're trying to sell yourself or how you're trying to sell your resume, because, that's probably going to make it a little bit more intimidating. And some of us just want to say we're not salespeople, but more look at it as, who can I talk to that, I can find out more information about? I'm trying to find a good job that, is going to be a good fit for me, that I'm going to be happy with, that is going to be something that I can really excel at. And so in order to do that, I just want to talk to some people and, find out their experiences. And I really look at it, when I go to these conferences and I'm meeting people, I try to really stop thinking that like, this is me selling myself. Honestly, I don't even a lot of times bring my business cards, which I know you're supposed to, but I still find that I walk away with a lot of connections and a lot of people that were, then linking up on LinkedIn too. And I think it's just more of a casual approach to really starting to talk to people and find out more about what other individuals are doing and opportunities.
Yeah, I love that, and exactly where I was going with that. That we've been talking to people our whole lives and making friendships and finding commonalities. So really, it's a lot of the same thing, and somehow that networking term does it formalizes things, and I think it's easy to be intimidated by that thought. So I love that. Thank you for breaking that down. It kind of takes me back to kind of thinking about the professional organizations going to one of the healthcare executives events myself one time at City of Hope, and there was a gentleman who was standing there, and anyway, we ended up kind of just chatting about what we did, and it turned out he was the CEO of one of our local medical centers, and I got to talking about teaching in the healthcare administration department at CSULB. So we had this amazing conversation that wasn't forced. It wasn't, no one was trying to network. I don't think we had our business cards. My students are horrified now because they're developing business cards and elevator speeches, but it's good to have all these things for sure at the ready. But I think bottom line is that that just naturally we found this connection. He ended up coming out to my class several times to be a speaker. So anyway, it's natural connections a lot of the time. So
Yeah.
thank you.
And I think just on that elevator pitch, I think, when it's something that you're passionate about, it's not as much a pitch, it's not as much a sale, it's something you're more casually talking about, and it's going to come off better too. And so, when you're thinking about that elevator pitch of yourself, more think about, what makes you who you are. And why are you, going to be great at this job or great for this company? And that's something that you can be passionate about. And when you're talking, it's going to come across more sincere and a little bit probably more comfortable than let me list off my accolades in my resume.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that, Elizabeth. And I think that's kind of the perfect juncture for us now to transition to our third panelist, Ardell Avellino from St. Mary Medical Center. And again, welcome, Ardell. So excited to have you here.
Thank you, Deb.
And Ardell, so I've had the privilege of knowing Ardell for now many years, and we have some similar paths. We've traveled together at different junctures in our career. So we both were presidents of the Healthcare Administration Alumni Network for the university. We both went through the accelerated graduate program at the university, and have kept in touch. And Ardell has served as a preceptor, the chief preceptor for our internship students who are interning at St. Mary Medical Center. And we know Ardell to be a stickler for interviews. So he expects our students, and for good reason, to come in prepared for the interviews as interns, and for those professionals who want to work at St. Mary and with Dignity Health. So with that preparation in mind, Ardell, might you be able to share a little bit more about what you're looking for in candidates, and why taking that approach of really having those high expectations is important in our field?
Thanks, Deb. So, fundamental for hiring managers, they look for basic credentials, education, and qualification for whatever that position is. But in my view, I'm a firm believer that, candidates really need to demonstrate passion and drive for the position that they're applying for. There's an old saying that you can teach skills, but not passion. And so I taught at Long Beach City College in the nursing program for almost 10 years. And I always tell the students that if you're in it for the money, because it's a lucrative profession, you're in it for the wrong reason. And so candidates really have to have a genuine interest and drive and an eager attitude. That's how you become successful in life. And then also you have to be a good fit for the organization. When I graduated from nursing school 20 years ago, so joining Elizabeth's club, I had two organizations that hired me on the spot. One was Long Beach Memorial, and then the other one was St. Mary Medical Center. And so I went home that day perplexed and spoke with my mother. I was living at home. And I said, Mom, which organization should I select? And in her Filipino accent, she said, "You're a good Catholic boy. That's non-negotiable. You're going to St. Mary." But not necessarily what my mom said, but that the mission, vision, and the values of the organization here at St. Mary really align with mine. So that was very important. So you have to be a fit for the organization. In terms of skill sets, I'm looking for someone who has good communication skills, interpersonal skills, someone who's detailed oriented, one who demonstrates leadership through initiatives, and someone who can demonstrate that they have good decision-making skills, really basic common sense as well. So when I look for candidates, there are certain barometers that I look for, and it really boils down to this. Can they do the job? Are they motivated? Are they interested in learning new skills? I'm looking for someone who's curious, who wants to expand in the organization. And are they coachable? And are they a fit for the team and the organization?
Love it. Love it. It sounds like you might be hanging out with Ted Lasso. I love it. I think that's one of his top, for anyone who watches Ted Lasso, I think that's one of his favorite things to say is that you must be coachable. All right, love that. Ardell, could you give us an example of specific job opportunities for our healthcare administration graduates and how to actually go about pursuing them?
Yeah, so Natasha did an exceptional job depicting those entry-level positions. There's quite a list that she shared with the group. And I have had the privilege to precept a large number of students, both in the bachelor's program and graduate level at Cal State Long Beach. And so entry-level positions are in the area of finance, HR, case management, and quality. And I really want to punctuate the importance of students doing well during their internship rotations. This is really a time for the students to capitalize on those experiences and making the connection with leaders who have hiring capabilities. Leadership in healthcare administration, it's all about relationship building, right? So learn to connect with those people. Showcase yourself in your work. If you make yourself notable during your internship, you will likely be considered for future positions. So I'd like to cite two individuals who were former interns of mine. One started with me as the coordinator for the case management department, then transitioned as my assistant in the compliance privacy area. That individual pursued his master's in business administration and is now the compliance officer for two hospitals in our division. One here at St. Mary and then over at California Hospital in Los Angeles. The second individual began his career in the organization as a coordinator for the medical education department, then became my right-hand person for our transformational performance improvement department. Now that individual is the patient experience director for the hospital. So again, showcase yourself during your internship, because when it's time for us to consider candidates for potential openings, we select those who have proven groundwork during their internship rotation.
I love that. Wonderful. And what should our graduating students and recent alumni expect in job interviews? And how do you recommend that they prepare for successfully nailing down that job? So again, we've heard you're a stickler. I've had students who've interned with you and they've interviewed with you, and they come back and they tell me that was hard. So we'd like to hear what do you expect in those interviews, and what tips do you have for those applicants to nail down that job, to be successful in that interviewing process?
Right. So Deb, the reputation is true. I had one candidate, not from this academic institution, but another, and I won't mention the name, who interviewed with me and claimed that she had proficiency in doing Excel. So her first week, I gave her an assignment to do Excel. Well, she didn't know how to do Excel, but the delivery and the presentation during her interview process was inaccurate. So I terminated her internship that same day. So, aside from passion, fit, preparation, you really need to do your homework and come prepared. Research the organization, know their mission, their values, and how it align with yours. I also look for gravitas. First impression is lasting, right? So have the appearance, dress for success, dress appropriately, be cognizant of how you speak, be logical and rational in your presentation. I expect candidates to talk about their experiences, their accomplishments, and highlighting their challenges, right? And things that they have overcome, because this really gives me a sense of how well they can handle heavy workloads and shifting priorities. Then I also look for their work ethic and their attitude. And so I expect them also at the end to ask follow-up questions, because great candidates, in my view and in my experience, should ask questions about the organization and the job that they're applying for.
What kind of questions for those students who maybe haven't had that level of professional interview before? What questions might you sometimes hear from a job applicant during an interview? What are some great questions for these interviewees to consider?
Qualities that we're looking for, what's the fit in the organization, preparation as such.
Terrific. And I really also really heard from what you were saying, how important it is to really provide some media examples of the work that they've done in the past. So taking that a little further, being able to describe projects that they've worked on, they've led in the past, whether those be as students, as interns, whether that be in a volunteer experience or an on-the-job experience, to be able to walk that, to answer a question by providing information on what did you do, how did you approach it, what were the steps you took, and why did it matter? So what was the outcome and why did it matter in the end that you did that certain something? Because it shows that you understand the bigger picture and how these contributions of the whole team make something happen. So
Deborah, if I could interject real quick, one question is, what makes your best employee stand out? And I maybe a related question is, what makes your best applicant stand out? And I think that could just maybe go open, not just to Ardell, but to all the panel members. So what makes your best employee and or your best applicant stand out?
So I can start. I mean, I agree with what Ardell shared very eloquently. Definitely. One piece when you talk about the applicant and when he talk about your challenges, right? Because we're all human. And to what you, Deborah, just said, to cover one piece that I think needs to be said is that, and so what? What did you learn from that experience? Right? Because we are looking for those connections, right? And that kind of critical thinking. Yes, there was a challenge, or yes, I did that. Here's why. Here's what I learned. So I would think that you asked about a sample question somebody could be asking as an applicant, and that goes to your question, Tom, or whoever asked in the chat there. So I would pose a question if I was interviewing. I would say, so, Ms. Travelino, I've noticed your healthcare system is a Catholic healthcare system, and I happen to share the same values in this. Could you tell me how, and from my experience, my background that you learned, how do you think might fit with my experiences, right? So tie into the organization and show them that you've actually did the research. To his point. As far as when you're an employee, we're looking for engaged people, those who share our mission. Healthcare is about mission, again, human connection. So those who are engaged and ready to do it over again every day, help out people in a productive way. So
Yeah, if I can just add to that, I think when I interview individuals, I always think about three things. One is the commitment to setting, two is their competency, and three is their emotional intelligence. And so the commitment to setting, I think I spoke about this earlier, but is this individual really want to work at this organization? Or is this like a quick stepping stone to get somewhere else? And it's not that some of us have to do those quick stepping stones, but the way you present yourself about that, is this individual, have they researched, like Natasha just said, do they research the company? Can they talk about the mission? Did they research who they're interviewing? Like, have they researched myself or, whomever else? And can they tie that in and really show that they're committed to this? This is someone that's going to take this job really serious. The competency factor, it doesn't have to be, like I said, the great resume or that they have this degree from this school, but, are they going to be someone that's going to know who to ask and when to ask questions to when they don't know something? And so a lot of the questions might kind of gear more towards, is this individual going to be a risk in that they think they know everything? Or is this individual going to be someone that can escalate, questions appropriately or find the right answers? And then the emotional intelligence, question, just think about sometimes, I know interviews are so scary, but when someone asks you a question, take a second to think about what they're asking. If you're interviewing for, a community care setting job, and they ask you, tell me what you want to do in 5 years, it's not going to be super emotionally intelligent to talk about how, you want to be practicing in the acute care setting and open up an acute care facility in 5 years when you're interviewing at a, community care clinic. And so the emotional intelligence piece, I think, just comes with taking a breath and thinking about really what they're asking, and, how you're presenting yourself to show that you're really interested in this position and that, you'll work hard and that you'll know, who to ask or how or when to ask questions to make sure you're always safe.
And Lionel, to answer your question, for me, a standout employee is one who is competent in their job and one who's able to work collaboratively with their peers and who works as a team. That's a standout employee for me.
I love that Lionel not only got a terrific answer, but Lionel's one of my students. So welcome, Lionel. All right, well, this is a perfect time for us to transition formally to our open discussion and question and answer component of tonight's session. And with that, I just wanted to remind everyone that this is a great time to put your questions into the chat box, and Dr. Canego is going to be our relay man and help ask those questions out loud to our wonderful panelists. And while you're all starting to put all those questions into the chat box, and we welcome all questions, I'll throw out a question, and something that comes up a lot and really important. What are some resume do's and don'ts? So I'm going to throw this, maybe each one of our panelists can give us one, a do and a don't for a resume. So Ardell, how about if I start with you?
So do make it succinct and simple. Don't put anything in there that you can't substantiate.
Yeah, perfect.
I would say spell check.
Perfect. And so that kind of goes for a do and a don't, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You spell check, don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
Perfect. And Natasha?
Love that. Spell check, important. Love that, Elizabeth. Make sure you have those keywords that are in the job posting in your resume. And remember, not all resumes, so don't think that one resume will apply everywhere. Remember, we have systems in place that are automated that scan them. So if you're applying for a job and revenue cycle, make sure that the keywords from the job posting are actually part of your resume so the system would pick it up, right? So make sure that as you're sending resumes out there, you do take a look as to what you're applying and what they're looking for. Sometimes, people will just send it and you see that objective. and the objective is the same, and it's like, well, how does this doesn't make sense? So make sure that you do that.
Natasha, do you recommend that applicants put a picture on their resume?
Oh, no. Can I say that again? No.
And why?
And when we see that, we actually toss those out. We do not. So please, no identifiers, years, because it's easy to, we're all human, right? And it's easy to jump to the conclusions that I did or didn't get the job, other than for the reasons other than somebody looking at my competence, right? So, oh, they didn't pick me because, you know, I dyed my hair green and I had green hair rather than right competency. So we'd like to look at all applicants without any identifiers, right? Just on paper, make sure that we are definitely looking at competence, years of experience, whatever's required. Yeah, so please do not do that.
And Natasha, that brings up another question. What about fancy formats for resumes? And what about color on resumes? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Can I just repeat what Ardell said, succinct? And simpler is better. You know, as you see all of the paragraphs are for actual interviews. If you pick up the keywords, you make sure the important information is there, you spell check them. Colors, okay, I'll tell you, if they're printing them out 8 out of 10, you know, printing them out in black and white, you know, anyways. So color, I guess, could be okay, but it doesn't really make you stand out or anything fancy. But you can get fancy as long as it's simple.
So the color won't trip up the software that they use for resume
The
reviews.
color does not trip it up, no.
Okay, that's good to know. I've heard that before, so I'm happy to hear that. Wonderful.
What about do's and don'ts of an elevator pitch? That's one of the questions that we got.
So your elevator pitch should be about 2 sentences.
Mhm.
And practice it in front of the mirror many times. And that's the best advice I got from a nationally recognized speaker once. It's about 2 sentences and practice it in a mirror. See how you look. That's the best advice that I can give you.
Jasmine asked an interesting question. As healthcare administrators, this is to all of you. How would you say your work-life balance is?
So I can answer that. Mine is pretty good. When I leave here, I made a rule 5 years ago not to connect my emails to my phone. I come in early in the morning, I leave timely and complete my job. Once I go home, it's family time. And so unless there's an emergency or if I'm the administrator on call, then I'd be available. So, but work-life balance is very, very important. So I make it a point that I exercise after work, that I spend time with family and friends, that I do activities on the weekend. It's very important. Health and wellness is critical in an executive role.
And he sets an example, and I would just challenge that in the busy world. The balance, the word balance, almost has this connotation of something's got to lose, right? There's a winner and there's a loser. We think about a balance. I choose to talk about integration, right? So you got to integrate it with all of these devices, what I call them, the tracking devices that we have in our lives. You can be tracked regardless whether you have an email on your phone or not. They have people on your cell phone. Things happen. This is healthcare. You know, we are 24/7. So it's really how you integrate it well to take care of yourself, to definitely to Ardell's point. And when you get to be in the jobs like ours, you also have to set an example as well for people. People will look at leaders, right? And if you have a leader that's there 24/7, never takes a break, then an employee feels like, oh my God, if she's doing it, I need to be doing that. And so we really have to be very conscious about it.
Elizabeth, a little while ago, you made a comment about answering the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? So Celeste asked an interesting question. What do you think about the following answer? I want to grow with the company and possibly move up within the company. Do you like that answer, or would you suggest something a little more specific?
No, I love it. I mean, sometimes I'll have individuals that talk about other positions they've seen within the company and say, you know, I would love at some point to be a director within the company. I really like that because I think that they're seeing they're talking about their future here, and they're talking about, you know, that the skills they're going to learn and they're going to continue to grow here. And we're looking at someone that might be with us for the next 5 or 10 years. So I love when they talk about that. I like it a lot better than when they tell me, you know, in 2 years, they hope to go out and start their own practice, or, you know, something completely opposite of the job they're stepping into.
But I think also be very cautious with your response, because you want to be realistic at the same time. You know, I've seen individuals in the organization where they come in and they want to be a supervisor in 3 years times or 2 year time. You really have to earn your stripes and build your reputation. Right, Natasha?
I love that, Ardell. You know, that used to be true. We always joke about this, right? Because I think us on the call, we earned the stripes. Let me tell you though, how that serves you well in the job that we're at right now. Nobody can pull the wool over your eyes, right? Because you've done the jobs. See, I've done the jobs in HR. Dell has done the jobs, and you know, Elizabeth as well in her area. And so that's a key to success, right? And so when you come in and say, hey, I want to be you in 5 years, you go, well, this is great, maybe not 5, but you really have to go, you know, one step at a time. And I know it feels when you're, you know, 22, you go, geez, how long do I have to wait? It does pay off at the end. It really does.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Now, I was 21 when I started as a nurse, became supervisor of the ICU at 23, almost 24, right? Rapid trajectory, but I really had to showcase myself, build the credibility with the staff, and grow in the organization. To Natasha's point, when people see you with the proven groundwork and the experience, that's when you gain respect.
Yes.
They don't take you seriously.
Exactly. You know what, Ardell, and I've seen a lot of people fail, lots of competent people fail. I'm sure you did too, in the roles, and somebody's been promoted, you know, faster. They don't understand the roles. When they get into the leadership role, it's really harder to be successful.
Well, Natasha, this question is probably appropriate for you, and I think this is a tough one. But Brandon asks, if you're going to an entry-level position, you know, how long do you expect to stay there before you're moving on?
That's a proverbial answer of it depends.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have hired you know, an assistant in the human resources, and they're at the front window greeting people, right? Letting people in, answering phones, right? I have had people being there for years and that's kind of what they want to do. I have had someone who's done that 6 months, and, you know, she was ready for a coordinator job, right? In which she spent 2 years. I mean, it just depends on the job complexity. You know, what are you doing? How quickly are you getting the job? Remember, it's also how proactive are you? Are you raising your hand? Are you becoming part of, versus sort of this silent, you know, observer of things, right? Right. So do you make your story, in other words, or you tell the story, you make the story? So again, make yourself proactive, volunteer, participate. You know, the leader is getting meetings together. You go, yeah, can I be there? I can certainly participate. And so you just get yourself ingrained in the organization. So it depends how well you do that. Become part of that team that Ardell talked about, right? Develop those collaborative skills is where your value then exponentially increases in an organization. So it depends. It really depends on a person.
I think this goes back to what I mentioned earlier about showcasing yourself, right? The eagerness, the willingness to learn and grow is what's going to get you there. And timing also is important.
So Juan asked a question that's probably appropriate for all of you. So we have a lot of students on the line. He happens to be a sophomore, but this would apply to everyone. So they're going to hang up from this meeting in about 10 minutes, and they're looking for networking opportunities. And Elizabeth, you mentioned earlier one organization or a couple of organizations, and we put those names in the chat box. But if you were one of the students on the line right now and you were looking for other networking opportunities, you're just starting to search the internet, how would you go about looking or identifying networking opportunities, organizations or events?
I'm not sure you have to look at it exactly as networking. You know, the entire Cope Scholar program is networking. If you know, you can look for training programs, you can look for internships. All of those things are networking too. So it doesn't have to just be, you know, how can I get out there and network, or what are the events going on? Think outside of the box too. Like, is there, you know, St. Mary's going to have a class around, you know, something for a week, and individuals from the community are able to come in for that. That's an opportunity you can go and meet people at. So it doesn't have to just be like events. You can look for classes, internships, volunteer opportunities. I think Natasha had mentioned that at the beginning. You can look for all these things outside of the box, and that's a chance to, again, what we go back to with networking is really just meeting and talking to people. And so those are all opportunities you could do as a sophomore in college. As far as organizations, you know, most of the ones I found out about were word of mouth. You know, I asked people that I was working with, or I asked probably individuals on this call or some of your professors, are there organizations they've heard of or they recommend? I liked doing that over Google because it obviously gave a little bit more validity or experience to some of the organizations. And then I just applied and joined, you know, to be a member. I think as far as events, anything that obviously the school can put on, or any of the healthcare systems that you're targeting, like maybe there's a few systems in your healthcare systems in your community that you're really interested in. And I'm sure there's events that they have that you can try to go to, that you can see if they're doing a walk, you can see, you know, if they're doing some sort of opening of a ribbon cutting ceremony or something that you can attend. They're always looking for community members. And so I think you can also kind of follow the events that may be going on within the healthcare systems within your community. I mean, you can go any place that you can really go and start talking to people and meet people is going to be a networking thing. And so think outside of the box as far as, you know, what's going on in your community.
Also to add, on at least LinkedIn and many others, there is boards where people do blogs, right? And they do posting, and there's topics of interest, right? You could enter one of those and start the conversation or be part of the conversation. I mean, I've met people that way many, many times. Sometimes, you know, when they're looking for candidates, you know, our recruiters will take a look at them. That's what they'll do. Like, as an example, LinkedIn does a good job at that. There are other places we could do that also on the internet that could be more closely related to the organizations you do want to be a part of. Another idea, just in this digital world.
The two interns that I had who are now employees, I met during a mixer event at CSULB. So if that is still an activity that's ongoing, attend those.
Yeah, great suggestions all around.
So this person didn't want to be identified, so I got an email instead of a chat. So I will protect the privacy. So I think this goes to any of you. Let's just assume that somebody reached out to you and just said, I'd like your job one day. So would you be willing to meet with me and talk about how I can get your job one day? What would you do with that? And would you advise that kind of gutsy kind of approach?
I love gutsy people.
Okay.
Bring it on.
Yep, I have done that in the past. Met with students like that. Yep.
Would not offend you at all?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I've had other.
I hope somebody wants my job one day. That's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's our job as a leader to create the next generation of leaders. It's about mentoring, creating those succession planning, right, activities. And one sign of a successful leader, and I think both Elizabeth and Ardell will tell you, is you surround yourself with people that are better than you, right? Eventually,
I agree.
great talent.
Yeah.
That's all you do. We're in the constant search of talent. So, hey, that's great.
But there's quite a distinction between arrogant and assertive. So if you're going to meet with me, keep those in mind.
Absolutely. And the great news is if someone's approaching to say that they would like to do your job someday and tell me how I can do it, the great news is we know the path. We know the path that we've taken. We have that experience to be able to share that with them instead of them just guessing or reading about it. So it's really a fantastic way to do maybe an informational interview with someone who's in a position you see yourself doing someday. It's a great way to make that contact, make that connection. Maybe that person's going to end up being a cheerleader for you and help connect you to an opportunity.
Yeah, and I think most of us on this call, I'm sure all of us on this call would say, we don't want anyone to make some of the mistakes we might have made in the past. And so, I would love to share with people, how not to make some of the mistakes that may have altered my career a little bit in the way I didn't want it to, and not to have, an individual have to experience that or deal with that. And I think we're, almost all leaders are going to be in that similar mindset. So I think it's very flattering when you reach out to say, I'm really passionate, or I really admire what you do, or, how you got there. Can we talk? And, when we can get a chance to share with you guys opportunities to, have a smoother path, I think it's, it makes us happy too.
Absolutely. I could give you just a quick example. Last week, a student, somebody who finished actually one of her universities, she's a social worker, and LCSW worked, ended up during the pandemic, working with suicidal teens. So to Elizabeth's point, that was a really tough turn. Didn't totally burned her out the whole field, and said, during the time though, I was staffing this clinic, I did all of these things, and I think I'm really interested in HR with my background. Would you talk to me? I'd love to know how you got where you're at. And so we actually just met yesterday, had an hour conversation. It was very interesting. So it is more common, Tom, that you maybe think, yeah.
Okay. Hey, Deborah, we've covered the chat room, so you're probably at wrap up time.
And I sure am. And maybe before we wrap up, just really quickly, any thoughts about thank you notes after an interview? So is there anyone on the panel who's, I'm going to go out on a limb. It's a good limb to say that we all think that writing a thank you note after an interview is a great way to go. Is there anyone who thinks that sending a handwritten thank you note is a great way to go?
I do agree with that. When I interviewed for my critical care position here 20 years ago, I sent my nursing director a handwritten note, and she's used that example to other candidates as something that was very impressive to her, and something that really stood out and made an impression for her.
So when Lionel asked the question earlier, what would make somebody stand out in your mind, at least in the application process, a handwritten note would do the trick.
Right.
Okay.
If there's not an opportunity to do that, sometimes, the process can be really quick, and you may not have an opportunity to get something in the mail or leave one. One thing that I've done in the past is the thank you note ties something together that we were talking about. So maybe I'll put an article in, or a link to an article around a topic that was brought up, to show that kind of I took that home and maybe I thought about it some more and I did some research. And so instead of it just saying, thank you so much for the time and I really enjoyed meeting with you, I also add, I thought more about this subject. I found this article, I thought it was of great interest. It highlighted this, which you had mentioned, or reaffirms that. And so it just shows that I'm really interested, and I'm kind of putting it all together, and I'm taking the time out too. And so if you don't get the opportunity to do a handwritten card, I think you can also, make the digital thank you a little bit more robust.
Yeah, I agree. Love that. And I think with that, I just want to really share what a wonderful evening this has been. So important topics, great questions and advice that not only is going to serve our attendees, our students and recent grads just incredibly well as early careerists in our field, but also be able to help all of us as we're continually moving through our careers. These are things that we continue to get better at, and use these same skills as we continue to move along in our careers. So with that, it is absolutely my pleasure on behalf of the CSULB Department of Healthcare Administration and the HCA Advisory Board to very enthusiastically thank all of our wonderful guest panelists, the Healthcare Administration Department, the College of Health and Human Services, and each and every one of you who made time and effort to attend tonight. A big thank you to my students who came out. They had me 2 nights in a row, or at least two nights this week. And thank you so much for coming to tonight's event. We look forward to seeing you soon, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, panelists.
Thank you.
We'll all talk soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.